Ari랑TV is airing a special documentary called Busan Rhapsody that sheds light on the city's unique features and more as seen through the eyes of a pair of British YouTubers. So what do they pick as one of Busan's greatest traits? And what do they believe makes Busan special? Also, what was their gauge of the Busan public's enthusiasm to bring home the 2030 World Expo? Welcome to Issues and Insiders. Today I speak with a pair of YouTubers who are on Arirang TV's documentary Busan Rhapsody, aimed at sharing the southern port city's merits amid its hopes of hosting the 2030 World Expo. For more on this, I have Daniel Bright here in the studio. Daniel, it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you very much. Nice
and
to meet you.
I'm allowed to call you Dan, you said earlier.
Dan is best.
Right, all right. I also have Joel Bennet with us. Joel, it's great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having us.
Right, Dan, we'll start with you. Let's begin with a quick introduction about yourself and your own YouTube channel, of course.
Yeah, so my name's Dan, or Daniel. I'm from Wales in the UK. I've been in Korea for just over 6 years. And we've been running the YouTube channel Dan and Joel, obviously named after us, for the past just over 6 years.
What's the focus of your channel?
The focus is actually our lives in Korea and sort of our exploration of Korean culture, mostly through Korean people, but also partly because it's such a big part of the Korean culture, through Korean food.
Right, I see. And Joel, tell us a bit about yourself and your work with Dan, with regard to this channel, of course.
Sure. Yeah, we love to explore Korea. We love to explore Korean culture. I have a background in filmmaking, documentary, and Dan has studied Korean. So together, we bring our skills, we bring our gifts, and we try and tell stories here in Korea.
Right. And Dan, before we talk more about this particular channel, do tell us about how your interest in Korea started, actually.
Yeah, great question. Actually, I had an ex-girlfriend about, I'm an old man now, so let me think back, maybe when I was 19 or so. She was Korean. That first kind of brought my interest in Korean culture, and actually ended up coming to Korea as an exchange student 11 years ago now. So that was my first interaction with Korea. Kind of fell in love with the country and the language. I was studying Korean and linguistics for my undergrad. And then Joel and I were part of the same church in London, and we actually ended up coming to Korea to do some filming for another YouTube channel together a couple of times. And I think that exploration of Korean culture, but also the friendship that we had together, really made me personally want to, not just as a student, but actually live in Korea and actually experience the lifestyle, but also make content at the same time. So that's really what started my interest in Korea. So your YouTube channel, Dan and Joel, began 6 years ago then? Yeah, so it's 2017, August, September. So yeah, just over 6 years.
Walk us through the start of that particular channel then.
Yeah, so I was working in London, actually working for a Korean government organisation in their London office. It probably wasn't the sort of work that I was really best suited for. I don't think I was necessarily great at my job. Around the same time, Joel was making some content, and sometimes we'd go and make some content together. I did a business trip in Korea. Joel happened to be in Korea at the same time, so we spent time eating and spending time with Korean people, and our friendship really grew, and our experience of the Korean culture. And then it came for another sort of series with another YouTube channel in 2017, and that's when we got really, really close, and we really realized, right, if we want to do this, we've kind of just got to do it. You know, otherwise we'll just keep talking about it and not do it. So in July of 2017, I left my job, and then a couple of months later, Joel and I said, right, we're going to do it. And we had another friend with us at the time called Adam, and he came out with us, and we actually made some content in the Korea town of London. It's called New Malden. And then in Wales, we made some sort of Korea-related content. So we went to I think it was the first Korean restaurant in Wales, and a few other things. And then we came out to Korea and started our YouTube channel. And we really probably at the start didn't know exactly what specific content we were going to do. We went to some restaurants and things like that. But as we carried on doing it, it really, I think the Korean culture and the life here kind of resonated with us in terms of the people and the stories, and maybe some of the things that are probably a little bit more hidden. So that's what we started to focus on.
Right, and talking about stories, Joel, what do you suppose are you two seeking to share by perhaps shedding light on this diverse community of people living here in South Korea?
I mean, like Dan said, it's all about stories, and we believe everyone has a story. One of the big things that we first observed here was there's almost these kind of two Koreas coexisting, kind of an older Korea and a newer one. And for us, that's just incredibly interesting. And there's so many stories for us to explore here. And whether that is, we've had opportunity to tell the story of an old cardboard collector, which was one of the most kind of moving and touching moments. And that was about 2 years in the making. Dan was actually out kind of meeting these people for a while, getting to know them. So to build those relationships here, and then to be able to tell people's stories in a way that they trust us has been really moving for us.
Right, I think that was a very precious, poignant story. The cardboard collector, the older woman, was
Yes,
that correct?
yes.
I see. Daniel, your latest work now with Arirang TV, of course, it's called Busan Rhapsody. Could you tell us a bit about Busan Rhapsody?
Yeah, it's a really recent thing for us, and it was really special for us. Something that Joel just said about, well, you were talking about the diversity. Really realised that even though Korea isn't necessarily sort of like the most ethnically diverse country, it has an incredible diversity within the country and within the sort of geographically and the food and the language and everything like that. And when we first came here, we went to Busan for several different work trips and some shoots and things like that. And we always felt like whenever we went to Busan, we experienced a different aspect of the city, different part of the culture and the history. And a few months ago, we got contacted by Arirang, and they said, do you want to come and do this series of content where you're going to explore some new things for you? So it's going to be new experiences for you. And that's what it's been, 5 videos, 5 shoots over the course of sort of 5-6 days in the past couple of months. And it's been pretty mind-blowing, because we thought we kind of knew Busan, and we say we go to Busan, we go to these places, and then they took us to completely new places. So even from where we were staying in the part of the city we hadn't really explored before. And it was just amazing to get to know people, places, food, and aspects of the culture, the industry, and the history that all kind of come together. So it was a great exploration for us. It was very in line with what we do on our YouTube channel, but it was nice to be able to just kind of be told, right, we're going to go here today, and you're going to go and explore and have the freedom to do that. And yeah, it really made me fall in love with Busan, probably to like a deeper level. And I always want to recommend Busan as a great place to visit, especially after doing this content.
Right, and keeping in mind what Dan has just said, Joel, if I were to ask you to pick one aspect of Busan that caught your attention during this particular project with Arirang TV, what would you highlight?
One of the things that stuck out to me was, you know, we were kind of talking a little bit before about the old and the new, and it was the one place we went to. We had sangwacha, kind of old, kind of almost medicinal tasting tea, but it kind of gives you a real energy boost. And that was at the Kangkangi Mall, where they kind of do the shipbuilding, and that was to have that in that environment was amazing. But then we went to a kind of a coffee shop, which had an award-winning barista who'd opened that coffee shop, and to see that kind of range within Korea was amazing, and to see that in Busan was really cool.
Right, coexistence of past and present then.
Yeah.
Dan, what would you choose to highlight as a aspect of Busan that you saw that you hadn't seen before?
It's a really difficult question, just because there were so many amazing experiences. The one Joel just said was really special, but actually one of the ones we did was an experience where we met Henya, a lady who has spent about 60 years of her life making a living out of diving, free diving, up to sort of 10-15 meters for fresh seafood. And we got to experience how they work, actually go in the sea with them. We didn't catch anything, but they caught some amazing seafood. We got to have a meal with them and hear their stories.
Did you actually get a chance to go into the sea with them?
Yeah.
Did you learn how to breathe? They have this special breathing technique they have.
Yes. So I'm laughing because when we were out in the sea with them, one of them was doing this kind of like blowing sound. And
Whistling.
It was whistling sound. And I thought she was trying to call like to the fish or something. And I asked her what she was doing, and she said, no, this is actually a breathing technique, because we have to, go down. I think it was about 4 meters they were diving to, which, having tried it, I could go down less than a meter. Just the whole experience of just seeing this lady. And once we finished the shoot, obviously you won't really see this in the documentary, but I was saying, come on, let's go back in now, because we're going to go and have lunch. And she said, yeah. And then we looked back, and she kept diving and catching something and saying, look what I caught. And it was like she just came alive in the water. And I felt alive in the water. Like, it was an amazing experience where you're literally out of your depth. you're out of your depth in terms of the cultural experience, but it's such a wonderful experience. So that was really special for me.
Their enthusiasm is really contagious.
Yes.
Joel, speaking within your capacity as a foreign resident here in the country, what appears perhaps to be the greatest difference between the capital city, Seoul, and Korea's southern port city of Busan?
I mean, there's a lot of differences. The first thing that I immediately feel, and I love Seoul. I love living in Seoul. It's one of the greatest cities in the world, in my opinion. But and I think it's almost like a friendliness in Busan, and I think it's probably because it's slightly smaller. But I think it's almost summed up in the almost song-like intonation of the satori, the
dialect that they have in Busan.
I was trying to think what the word is in English. But yeah, the dialect and there's such a friendliness in that kind of the way that people speak in Busan, and it's so welcoming. And I think that for me that was one of the biggest differences. Yeah.
What about you, Dan? If I were to ask you to pick a difference between Seoul and Busan, what would you highlight? By the way, were you able to understand the dialect? Because your Korean, I know, is really proficient. But when you consider the dialect in Busan, were you able to understand it?
That's a really good question. At times, yes. Sometimes you understand it when you don't expect to, from older people. And then sometimes someone's speaking and you're like, that really sounds like a different language. So there are moments where, and I think that's why it's such a, like Joel was mentioning, it's such a different cultural experience, because you think you've learned the language. I've spent years speaking it and trying to get better, and suddenly I'm just like, I literally have no idea what you just said. Yeah, in terms of the biggest difference, I grew up at a sort of seaside town, and then I lived in a larger city by the sea, and I always feel like a city that has sea has it sort of inevitably has a different atmosphere. But I've never lived in like a big city, like a major city by the sea. And Busan has this incredible, I always say to people, this marriage of incredible architecture and infrastructure and nature, mountains and sea, all together. And every kind of coastal road that you go around, there's like this new experience of the sea and the beach. And then you'll have these like some of the tallest buildings in the world, literally on the seafront. And just being in that experience, just sort of standing there. We spent a while in the sea and down on the beach, and you can't do that in Seoul, obviously. But there's something about the feeling of that. It's actually difficult to sum it up, but the actual feeling of the atmosphere is very different, yeah.
Right, for sure. Daniel, food, it's an essential part of Korea's cultural experience, of course. And that being said, what was the dining experience in Busan like?
Well, I touched on, we went for a meal with the Haenyeo ladies, and I won't give too much away because I'd love people to see kind of what we ate and what they caught. That was really special. Obviously, Busan is right by the sea, so you expect to eat a lot of seafood, and we did eat some seafood, but we actually got to eat yanggopchang, so this beef tripe, and it was different from what I've had in Seoul, even though I've had the same dish. And the environment we ate it was very Busan. So that was a very special dining experience for me. And
staying with that, Joel, what do you care to share about the dining experience in Busan?
I mean, Dan just mentioned about the yanggopchang, the tripe. And we were very surprised that there was this whole kind of street, this whole kind of area to get that. And we found out that actually, kind of historically, people would come off the boats and they'd just be sick of fish. They've eaten way too much fish. They'd come back to land and they'd want to have more kind of meat and that kind of food. So that was a really interesting insight into the history of how that place became famous. But also the taste was, wow. I'm not a massive gopchang kind of person, but that was really good.
How were you with the raw seafood? Were you okay with that?
I'm pretty good with that now. When I first tried it, it was different. But like a lot of things in life, and especially in Korea for me, the more you try something, you get that acquired taste. And I think, as Dan said before, like having seafood in Seoul compared to having seafood in Busan, when you're right by the coast, near the beach, you can smell the air. It's just different, the atmosphere. I think that is kind of half the taste, really.
I would have to agree. Dan, the passion for sports, especially baseball, is quite high in Busan. That being said, how does that particular feather, perhaps, compare to that in the UK?
Great question. It was something I was actually thinking about when we were in the stadium. So we went to watch a baseball game. First baseball game of my life. It's obviously not a huge thing in the UK, but we have the Premier League, and football is a huge thing, and people are sort of tied to their hometowns and supporting it sort of through their family and things like that. There was some similarities. There was the big atmosphere. There was the songs and all that, but there was something uniquely Korean about it. One of those things was the food experience. There were some people next to us with pizzas and kimbap, and they had all the different cups and stuff they'd all brought with them, and it was just like, I was looking at it and I was thinking, you probably can't experience that in any other country in the world. And then the other thing that really stood out to me was however well or not well the team was doing in that particular game, every time someone came out to bat or to field or whatever, the fans were singing a song for each player. They would spend like 1 to 2 minutes like repeatedly singing this really passionate song for each player. I thought, wow, that's a very sort of Korean, unique to Korea way of supporting. I really thought that was a really beautiful thing, and something that is probably actually quite different from how they do it in the UK. So yeah, it was quite special for me.
Right. Joel, you were in Busan also during its International Film Festival, if I'm right.
Yes.
What was that particular experience like?
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, like to be in there, the atmosphere, and as a filmmaker myself and someone who studied film, and an inspiring filmmaker also, to be inspired by some of the films and the environment and the people just watching. It was really amazing, really cool. We talked to one couple, a European couple, and they said, we came here on holiday to Busan. I think they came to Korea and they end up in Busan, and they found out there was a film festival here, and they were like, we have to go back and visit that film festival. And they came back and we were able to interview them, and they were like, we watched, I think they said something like 30 films, and they came back just to come to Busan, all the way from, I think it was France or Italy or somewhere like that. So it just shows kind of how international like Busan has become.
Did you get a chance to enjoy the night scenery during this film festival? They have these open like restaurants by the seaside for all the filmmakers and those who come to visit the show. Were you able to enjoy that?
Yeah, we went to the Pocha, down, I think it was Haeundae, and we got to experience that environment, that feeling, and like everything in Korea, like just to be able to experience good food in the right environment, it's really important, and that specifically was amazing.
Joel, this is an impromptu question, but as a person interested in filmmaking, I'm wondering whether Korea's recent successes on the screen, on screens globally, have perhaps changed your perception of Korea's screen productions?
It definitely hasn't changed my perception at all, because some of my favourite films are a little bit older, and probably don't have the clout that the newer ones have had. But I think it's important now that people are getting into Korean filmmaking, because there's so much. I think people, with the Oscars and the successes that have come, I think now people can start looking back at films that have come through, and I hope that they get to see and witness some of what I regard as some of the best films that I've ever seen that have come from Korea.
And back to Busan then, Daniel. How excited do you suppose the people of Busan are about perhaps hosting the 2030 World Expo, should the city be selected?
Yeah, personally, I'd love it to be selected. You could even see, as Joel mentioned, the foreign visitors, especially to the film festival, just how much they hold the city in regard, not just as a city for film, not just for a specific aspect, but the whole city itself. And I could see that, you can see that among the younger Korean and the older Korean people who know that it's being kind of nominated, and it's trying to get this World Expo in 2030. I think people are very excited about it, and I think they should be. Personally, I think as Korea now is becoming kind of more well-known around the world for its popular culture and its arts and its food and various different things, people will inevitably come to Seoul more and maybe go to certain more touristy places. Busan can be a touristy place, but I think it's also a city that sort of deserves to sort of be known around the world. It's not necessarily enormous, but that is actually, I think, one of the benefits of it, because it's just got this kind of uniqueness to it that I think, I always say to people, if you come to Korea and you get the chance to go anywhere else, Busan is a wonderful place to visit. And I think wherever you are in the world and whatever you're interested in, Busan is a kind of great city to find out more about, to visit personally. So yeah, personally, I would absolutely love it to be held in Busan in 2030. And I think the Korean people and the Busan people in particular are very excited about that. Right,
and so are we. Joel, finally, is there a message that you'd like to share with our viewers with regard to Busan's hopes of hosting the 2030 World Expo?
Yeah, I mean, like, if anyone has the opportunity, kind of as Dan was saying, if anyone has the opportunity to go to Busan, do it. The nature, the history, the food, the culture, especially kind of if you're coming from another country, if you're not based in Korea already, please visit Busan. And I hope a lot of people can kind of get to know the city and the area a lot more.
Right, and Dan, a few words to our viewers before you go about Busan.
Yeah, wonderful city. Definitely one of my favourite places, not just in Seoul, but in the world. And I've never experienced someone who's gone to Busan and hasn't had a great time. So like Joel said, just want to echo that. If you come to Korea, definitely visit Busan because you'll have a wonderful experience.
All right. Dan, thank you so much for your time and your thoughts today. And Joel, thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you.
Right, well, that brings us to the end of this edition of Issues and Insiders. Thank you for watching. See you same time tomorrow.